Like one of the things that I deal with is health anxiety, and this all happened very recently for me. Health stuff. I was never conscious of my health when I was growing up, but it all happened fairly recently, back in September when I had my first panic attack on my way to work.
Tell me what that was like, if you don't mind, because
goodness,
I've never had it, and people
terrible.
explain them to me, and I'm like, gosh, that sounds...
Oh, I'd never had one, so I didn't know what it was.
So what was happening? What does it feel like?
So I was on my way to work, and one of my coworkers texted me and said, it just said, hey, are you on your way, or something about the day. And that was enough to like trigger, because at the time I was dealing with a lot of stress at work. Didn't want to be there. They didn't want me there, and they eventually let me go like a month later after it happened. So it was a really bad situation. It was causing me a ton of stress, tons of anxiety. So on my way to work, I get this text, and I just feel like anxiety, like normal anxiety, but
like a tightening in the body, that sort of thing.
Just like my hands start to get clammy,
Okay.
and my heart rate kind of picks up a little bit. Everybody experiences something different.
Yeah.
But as I was going on my way to work, I felt like this rush of blood through my feet and through my hands, and then my heart started like pounding in my chest, and I thought I was having a heart attack. I was like, I have no idea what's happening, and it was like a cycle. Like I would have the rushing feeling, then my heart would start pounding, and then it would go away, and then maybe a minute later it started again, and the whole cycle started to repeat. And that was a panic attack, I learned later. I like immediately turned around and went to the hospital, and they checked me out and put EKGs all over me and everything, and they said, no, you're fine. Your heart looks good. Everything looks fine. So it was just a panic attack. But that was the first time I ever experienced anything like that.
Wow.
So, and since then, I've had more panic attacks. Apparently, once you've had one, it's a lot easier to have more.
Man, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. And
it's unfair.
And like I said, before that happened, I never had, what am I trying to say? I didn't deal with health anxiety before it happened. But after it happened, I really started to think, oh my gosh, I have kids now. What would have happened if I did just die on my way to work? And so that started this catastrophizing, health anxiety, all this stuff. What I realized is eventually over time, after reading some books and starting to go through some of the literature on anxiety, was that some of the behaviors that I was doing was completely just like making everything worse. And so what I was doing was I would get on Google, and anytime I had a new symptom of something, I would get on Google and be like, okay, what is this new symptom? And that I learned later on, that's one of my triggers. So I eventually stopped doing that, even though like, I don't know what this new thing is. Like I have this new pain in my back, or this new pain in my chest or my arm or whatever. I'm like, this has got to be something. Like I have cancer now in this area of my body. And that's what the anxiety-driven brain does, which again can apply to belief about God. That's why I think it's so important that we talk about this, that maybe your doubt, maybe your anxiety or doubts about God's existence are not rational. They're just based on these bad behaviors that you've built up, or this chemistry that's going on in your mind, that if you got that sorted out, you would no longer be driven by these doubts.
I don't doubt that what you're bringing up is a good point. I just want to play the devil's advocate here, because we as Christians know how insulting it is when an atheist looks at us and says, like, you're just deluded. Like, you're actually like, you're sick in the brain, and like belief is a disease, and you just need to be treated. It should be legitimately in the DSM so that you can be treated. And it kind of sounds like you're saying maybe the opposite is true. Like, well, if you don't believe, then maybe there's just something mentally wrong with you, and that could be insulting to people who are genuinely seeking God and can't find him.
That's a good point that we could clarify here. So I'm not saying that everybody is experiencing this and all doubt is irrational. I'm saying that some doubt can be irrational and can be driven by these factors. And I think it actually happens in more cases than we'd like to admit. That's one of the things that's super interesting to me, is that a lot of people have said, it's really weird that you are so open about your anxiety. And to me, like, I don't understand why people are so, like, they don't want to talk about it. I've just never understood that.
I think it's really cool that you are like that.
I'm totally open to talking about it, because if it's an irrational part of me that's causing all of these things, like, again, I think it goes back to the insecurities. If it's a legit criticism, then it shouldn't bother me. But if it's not a legit criticism, still shouldn't bother me. So then so anyways, I'm not saying that all doubt is irrational. I think that some doubt can be completely rational and is not driven by anxiety. But I think that the fact of the matter is that so many people deal with anxiety. And so for some people, this is going to be very relevant. And I know people, like in my own experience, who have been they've struggled with some of these doubts that are caused by brain chemistry, that the only way that they got it sorted out was to get on medication. And it's not just about God's existence. It was this kind of catastrophizing about other areas, about just anything. Going to work, you can't get in your car to go to work because what if I get in a crash and I die? What if this happens? This bad consequence. So it's not just about God's existence. I think anxiety afflicts a lot of people, and it's a potential pitfall that could be cured, in a sense, if you either get on the right medication or you take the right steps and you stop these bad behaviors from leading to all of these potential bad things. Like I mentioned about this philosopher friend of mine who struggled with OCD. He told me that after he got on the right medication, he was no longer like experiencing these crippling doubts. And like for him, it was obviously just a brain chemistry thing. And once you can get rid of those crippling doubts that are just like overriding your mental capacities, then you can really start to think rationally about something instead of just being driven to all of these skeptical conclusions because of these underlying biological or things that are going on beneath the surface that you're just not recognizing. You think, and that's because we like to think that we're just rational creatures. Like I'm just a rational person, just really looking at the evidence,
assessing the data.
Yeah, from an unbiased perspective. When in reality, there's stuff going on beneath the surface, and this could be a big cause of that. Could
you maybe give me an example of how you use this sort of, what did you call it, cognitive behavioral therapy, in a non-religious sense? So
Yep.
what is it, something when your thoughts start to go off the track, maybe it has to do with family or friendships or career, and you realize it, would you mind
Yep.
leading us down there? What do you do? How does that work?
Yeah, so this is unorthodox, and I don't recommend this for
you're
everybody.
not a therapist. We're not giving therapy advice.
Right, but this is what I started doing, and it's helped me. And again, what I deal with is health anxiety. That's like the number one source of my anxiety right now. It's not talking with atheists online. Like I still get nervous and I get anxiety when I'm about to go on and speak with somebody. And even sometimes when I interact with people that I disagree with online, but it's never been at the level where it's caused a panic attack or anything like that. It's really just health anxiety that's my main source of anxiety, like the serious anxiety. So what I've started to do when I notice that like I get a pain somewhere in my body and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? What's happening? What's the cause of this? Is this something really serious that's going to lead to this thing? So just all the typical signs of catastrophizing. What I do is I'll like wake myself out of that by like punching myself in the leg or like causing pain somewhere on my body.
Yeah.
And that immediately pulls me out and like brings me back to the real world. And this is a strategy I actually learned from
it kind of takes you out of your head, doesn't it? Physical pain brings you out of yourself.
Yeah, nothing brings you back to reality like pain. Like just like intense pain somewhere else on your body. And I've had experiences where like I'll have a pain that's like right here in my chest. And anxiety can cause that. Anxiety can cause pain in your chest. And it feels like, man, this is just like a real pain that I'm experiencing. Like, what is this? And I'll do something like I'll punch myself in the arm or like cause pain somewhere. Again, this sounds really weird.
No, I do the same thing. Can I be honest with you?
Yeah.
This is a bit embarrassing, but I had a bad night's sleep last night, and there's times that you're talking to me, I'm following you, but I start glazing over. You know how when you glaze over, you have to kind of do that?
Yeah.
That doesn't look good on camera. So what I've been doing occasionally, and this is not because you're uninteresting, everything it's fascinating, I'm pinching myself. I've probably done like 2 or 3 times in this interview. We're chatting, and I'll start to glaze over, and I'll pinch myself.
You may
like,
just have ACD.
Whoa.
ADD? What is that?
Oh, I definitely have ADD, but that's not the problem. The problem is I'm exhausted. But that's interesting because it's like it's something similar to what you're saying. It's just sort of like it brings you out of yourself. Did you hear what he's saying about like pain and stuff?
Well, and I've noticed that like when I have this pain in my chest, I'll like punch myself in the leg really hard.
Yeah.
I'm not hurting myself.
You're not bruising yourself.
I'm not bruising myself. I'm just like causing enough pain to bring my mind, like snap my mind out of it, to stop that bad behavior, basically.
I wonder if people have, I think I've heard people talk about having a rubber band around their arm.
Oh, and just slapping it.
And
I've
snapping
heard of that.
it.
Yeah.
I've heard that. I can't vouch for it, of course. But
yeah, and it's weird how effective it is. It's really weird.
Yeah.
Like
you'll have a thought like, what is that? And you're like, nope, not going there.
In the past, I would get on Google immediately and start searching like, sharp pain in chest,
cancer,
momentary. Yeah. And what's interesting is that on Google, like all of the links that are on the front page are meant, like they're all designed to give you the worst case scenario because that's what everyone's worried about. And so you immediately are going to go click on that link.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a completely terrible, like the whole setup is basically against you when you deal with health anxiety or different types of anxiety.
That's really interesting. Thanks for that. Yeah.
Hey, if you enjoyed that clip, you will absolutely love the full interview, so click right there to enjoy the whole thing. Also, a big thanks to these groups who made that interview possible. Learn more in the show notes below about these guys. They're absolutely incredible and honored to have them as sponsors. Oh, and also, if you haven't subscribed yet, click subscribe and then that bell button. That way YouTube will be forced to let you know when we put out more content.